Summer school rolls on. Today we talk about the Purdue Boilermakers who, well, once again, I feel like Nebraska's made unlimited trips to Purdue over the years, and they will do so again on Saturday, September 28th of this year. Let's Purdue ourselves with Tom Dienhart, goldenblack.com, to talk about the Boilermakers. Tom, thanks for doing this again. Appreciate it. How are you?
Yeah, real good. Fresh off of media days down there in Indianapolis. So Boilermakers will get their chin straps buckled next Wednesday and start camp. So, yeah, that Purdue Nebraska game, I'll just say this, it's a big one for the Boilermakers on September 28th here.
Hey, so are you back already? Since Purdue had their day one, are you just like quick, there and back?
Yeah.
That's it. I was going to tell you if you were still there to just, go punch our dear friend Steve Sipple for me in the, in the abdomen. Give him one for me.
I can't do that to Sip, man. He's my guy.
But in a friendly way. In a friendly way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's. I'm bummed. That would have been just worth the trip down there to see Steve and Sean Callahan, two of my best buddies. He's great guys. Fun to always visit with them. And Purdue went yesterday with Rutgers and Ohio State. Illinois was down there. A 3-day event this year, obviously with 18 teams. And boy, the first question I had in most people's mouths for Ryan Walters was, "Hey, what's it feel like to be picked last?" It's just a tough blow. 18th out of 18, and you look at the preseason magazines too. The Lindy's, Athlons, and Phil Steele. He was picked last by Athlon, last by Phil Steele, and 16th by Lindy's. So Ryan Walters says he's trying to use all of that as motivation as to get ready for this 2024 season.
What's the energy like in there? I mean, hearing Walters talk a little bit yesterday, obviously he gets those kinds of questions. They had some turnover. They lost some guys to the portal. They get their quarterback back. I guess what's the energy internally rather than just how people are viewing them?
They say they're saying all the right things, and I've got nothing to believe there isn't. Everything's ready to go off the rails. Sure, there's questions. He's got questions like everybody else. 37 new players, right? That's a lot. Walters have continued to dip into the portal to try to remake this roster. So a lot of new faces. I think the thing that worries, prognosticators is the schedule. It's maybe the toughest in the Big Ten. It's they have Indiana State to kick things off on the 31st of August, but non-conference game against Notre Dame, and they have to go out to Oregon State, which Oregon State's in transition, and that still could be a trapdoor kind of a game. And then in the Big Ten, you're playing maybe the three best teams in the conference. You got Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State all on your schedule. You have to go to Wisconsin, which is no retreat in Madison, and you have to win those toss-up games if you're Purdue, and one of those toss-up games is Nebraska, right? Yep. I know Nebraska thinks they can kick Purdue's butt, and I'm sure Purdue thinks they can kick Nebraska's butt. You got two second-year head coaches, two programs fighting for relevancy, and it's big for the Boilermakers to try to win a game like that at home, and maybe a slight favorite. It's probably could be a pick'em game, and it's a big one. And for Purdue, those other toss-up games are on the road for them, at Illinois, at Indiana, at Michigan State. If you're Purdue, you have to find a way to win those games too, I think. Just getting the 6-win guys, if they get the 6 wins, it would be miraculous, I think.
Yeah, and well, those toss-up games are there. You also, Purdue also goes to Wisconsin as well. They go to Oregon State. Those are, at least gettable. But man, I don't. Is there anybody else in the league that gets Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State? I mean, that's a tricky trio.
I know. How about that trio right off the jump? And, Penn State and Oregon come to West Lafayette. Oregon's on a Friday night. It'll be a fun night. It's going to be a blackout. I think they're going to have special black jerseys and a new decal on the helmet. They have to go to Columbus. Forget that, right? They haven't won in Columbus since 1988. And, Wisconsin guys, they've lost seems like 100 games in a row to Wisconsin. I'm not exaggerating. They haven't beaten Wisconsin. Gosh, think you have to go back to the early 2000s, like 2003. It's going to be tough. And the Oregon State game is huge, right? If you're Purdue, you got to win in Corvallis. You cannot stub your toe out there. Oregon State's going to be fired up, right? They're getting a Big Ten team in Corvallis after getting ditched by the rest of their Pac-12 buddies. They're going to show everybody that, hey, let's take down this big time, split from a big time conference. So they're going to be fired up out there to beat Purdue. Purdue's going to go out there a day early, I know. 5:30 local kick, about an 8 p.m. kick in West Lafayette. So Purdue's going to get back late or early in the morning. That's a long plane ride. Yeah. Come back as a loser, so you got to win that one. You're not going to be Notre Dame, right? You have to be 2-1 when Nebraska rolls into town, and then you're still in the game. And then if you can somehow beat Nebraska, then you're rolling a little bit, right? But let's be honest, if it could go off the rails. If you lose in Corvallis, you're 1-2. You lose to Nebraska, and then all of a sudden everybody's looking at each other, going, "What's going on here, guys?" And you could spin out of control like a 2-10 type of a season, maybe.
By the way, I checked. Last time Purdue beat Wisconsin, 2003. Yeah. I mean, and it's not like they've all been blowouts. There's been a few of them in there. There's been some really close games over the. I mean, we're talking about. I mean, that's more than 20 years, Tom. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's just like how many. I can't remember how many games in a row. Off the top of my head, like 15 or 16 losses in a row to Wisconsin.
Yeah,
that game was in Madison, the last one. Purdue hasn't beaten Wisconsin in West Lafayette since 1997. Joe Tiller's first year. So how about that?
Wow.
So my point being that the Wisconsin series has not been kind to Purdue. So like I said, the schedule's a tough one. And you talked about the personnel a little bit. I think Hudson Card's a solid quarterback. It's always easy to say, well, Purdue's going to go as far as its quarterback takes it. You can say that about a lot of teams, and that really is going to be the case for the Boilers, I think, though. He's going to have to play well in his second year in the system. He's going to have to stay healthy for this team to have any shot at all, because I think the offense is going to have to carry this team at least early in the year.
Yeah.
I think you have a chance. I think you have a chance to score some points. But the defense come around, that's going to be a real key if that side of the ball really develops.
It's so interesting too, because it was such a stark difference in head coaches and kind of what they were all about, going from Braum, all about the offense. And that's been Purdue's MO for a long time now. And you hire a defensive coordinator who built a really good defense at Illinois, and you kind of expect to become that. How rocky, or I guess how has that transition been, trying to become what I assume they're trying to become, which is the defense first type of team?
It's been rocky, let's be honest. And I think a lot of people were surprised when Ryan Walters was the pick. For the very reason you talked about, offense really being the identity of Purdue, going back generations, right? The cradle of quarterbacks. Go back to Lynn Dawson, Bob Greasy, Mike Fitz, Mark Herman, Jim Everett. You can go on and on. Jeff George came here at first, and all the way through Drew Brees and Aiden O'Connell. And at Purdue, let's be honest. At Purdue, I can count on one hand in my lifetime the years they've had really salty defenses. You're never going to win with defense at Purdue. You're going to win by outscoring people. And they went defense with the head coach. And I'm not saying it can't work, but they're thinking outside the box here. Maybe it will all work here. The defense last year finished last in the Big Ten in points allowed per game. Yeah, they allowed 30 points per game. So, like I said, I think the offense has a chance to be solid this year. Will the defense come together? Like I said, we'll see. I think they're better back there. They have some big questions up front. They lost their best pass rusher to the portal. Nick Scott went to Texas A&M. Who's going to bring the heat? I know there's questions on the defensive line overall. And man, anytime you have questions on your line on either side of the ball, you've got something to worry about.
What's it like? I mean, to flip the other way here, what happens if it goes sideways this year? Like, what does that look like? What's the conversation like at the end of the year with a young coach?
Like I said, it could go. It could be a 2-10 or a 3-9. He was 4-8 last year, and they're certainly not going to make a move unless this thing goes 0-12 and they get smoked in every game. It would take something utterly catastrophic. That is just not what Purdue does. Purdue does not hastily fire coaches after 2 seasons in any sport. Just a very conservative place where athletics never really has been a super number one A priority. So again, Ryan Walters, yes, the scrutiny will get more intense in 2025. The honeymoon will certainly be over, right? And they're going to want to see some type of results in year 3. And even then, I think he probably would get a 4th year. If you guys remember the Daryl Hazel era not too long ago,
I do.
He even got into a 4th year. And honestly, he probably should have been fired after his 1st year. So again, they stuck with Hazel going into a 4th year. I think Walters would get his chance to get this thing figured out. But again, that Daryl Hazel era, man, you should have seen the crowds here. It was really it was brutal, man. It was very brutal, and nobody wants to see that again. And this is a big year for Ryan Walters. I think most people understand the challenges he faces. Can he keep his head above water this year, stay competitive, and not let this thing go off the cliff?
I remember one of the things we talked about last year before the season, Tom, was with Purdue was, the upgrades that they made to the stadium. How has the project kind of come along? And I guess, forgive me, I don't really know where it stands right now. Are they finished with that? Is that all the way done?
Yeah, they finished up. They have it's called the Tiller Tunnel, and homage to Joe Tiller. The players now run through onto the field, kind of like where you have it in Nebraska. It's a nice element, from a game day experience standpoint. And they redid the south end zone. If you're sitting in the press box, the south end zone's to your right, and it's nice. They did a good job, and in the parking lot in the north end zone, they're opening up as we speak. The last part, which is a dining court for all the student athletes. So $45 million overall. So it's a nice setup. It's never going to be a Taj Mahal like Nebraska and Ohio State, some of these other places, but it's a nice functional facility for Purdue. And like you said, Nebraska and Purdue, it seems like you guys have been out here a lot in recent years.
Yeah.
And like I said, I always look forward to seeing Sean and Steve, and I know Robin well too. Just great guys at a great site. So I always like seeing those folks, and it's been a great series, right?
Oh yeah.
Nebraska got him last year. I think you had, was it Hunter or what was his last name, Hillemeyer? The guy named Hunter, he looked like a linebacker, was your quarterback against Purdue last year, and then they beat him in Lincoln. I was out there, but anyway, everybody's interested to see what the Rayola kid looks like and what he can do this year.
Yep, no doubt about it. Well, Tom, I appreciate it. Look forward to getting out there once again. Thanks for taking the time, and have fun this year.
All right, thanks for having me. Take care.
That's Tom Dienhart, goldenblack.com, talking some Purdue. So I didn't even really hear what he was, he kind of cut out there toward the end of the question he was asking. But as far as the history between these two, there's been some memorable ones. Last year went Nebraska's way, hit a couple big plays. 2 years ago in West Lafayette was the very close. Trey Palmer had like 200 plus yards receiving in that game.
The Trey Palmer
game, as they call it. 21. Oh, 21. They played here, and they kind of were starting to look like a semblance of a real football team, but lost close to Purdue I don't remember much about that one. 20 Nebraska won out there. Adrian passed for, had a almost like a game-winning touchdown, if I remember. That was the one where they should have been up like 3 touchdowns right away, but they were only up 10-0.
I do remember that game, actually, now that you say that.
Nebraska lost there in 19, lost here in the winnable games game in 18, won there in 17, Riley's last win. Nebraska won here in 16 on their route to becoming 7-0. Got blasted by him in 15, Riker Fife. That was when I woke up from my nap and they were down 42-16, and I was like, what planet am I on? And then really uneventful before that, there was only 2 games. This has been a weird series. Those 2 teams, all time, 6-6.
Ew.
Yeah, disgusting, isn't it?
Very.
But so that's a good transition here, because we got a text before from Jeff that said, "Hey, I know he covers them, but this game is definitely not a toss-up. Nebraska should be favored." Well, I think Nebraska will be favored, but I I agree with Tom. It is a toss-up. Like, Nebraska has pretty much every one of Nebraska's games this year is a toss-up. I think we like them to win these games, but with the exception of UTEP, Northern Iowa, maybe. I mean, it might not qualify as it might be on the wrong side of a toss-up for Purdue, right? But like, it's not like a guaranteed win.
Are we doing the thing where Nebraska hasn't until Nebraska beats somebody? Every game is a toss-up.
Like, so is
that what we're doing here?
I look at it a lot like 16. Nebraska had a bunch of like toss-up type of games, but they won them all. They went 7-0. The Fresno State, Wyoming thing. Okay. Those were your easy ones, but they beat Oregon by 3. They beat Northwestern by less than 2 touchdowns. They beat Illinois by 2 touchdowns. They beat Indiana close, had to have a touchdown late, and they beat Purdue relatively close, less than 2 touchdowns. Right? These are close games in the fourth quarter. That's kind of a toss-up game. So I don't know. Nebraska will be favored, but it's like it's not scary, right?
I am confident Nebraska can get 17 points against Purdue.
Are you going to put it on the list? Nebraska will beat Purdue?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
You don't seem very confident, Josh. I couldn't help but notice.
I feel like you backed me into that.
I did. You don't have to say yes.
But if I say no, then it's a toss-up.
Yeah, this is the point that I'm making. This is the exact point I'm making. If you say no, it's a toss-up. Say no.
Put it on the board.
Wow.
Nebraska beats Purdue.
Classic overconfident Nebraska fan, Josh.
What if Nebraska?
How about Nebraska beats Purdue?
Lost again.
How about Nebraska beats Purdue, and then we talk about what's a toss-up and what's not a toss-up? Okay.
But then it's too late. You got to be ahead of the narrative, Connor.
Yeah, it's not quite 50-50. Nebraska's got like 50-50 games. It's not quite 50-50, but
60-40?
It's definitely losable. It's definitely losable.
We've seen every game is losable.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, Brandon says, with that defense, are games really a toss-up? You think Raiola can't get 17 with those receivers?
In this economy?
Sam says, a week ago, Happer was very high on Rutgers, but today they aren't in the toss-up conversations. I suspect Happer is getting yogurt money to not say so. Am I getting paid off by Big Yogurt?
Definitely.
People are indeed wondering. So, by the way, people are messaging me on what they thought Tom said when I couldn't understand them.
Somebody named Hunter.
So he said he said the word linebacker in there. He's like, I thought they had a linebacker playing quarterback. Hunter Hillenberger. He was talking about Heine. He was talking about Heine. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. But
yes, they were.
He was not a linebacker, but I get it.
So injured at quarterback that they had to put a linebacker. Yeah,
he wasn't a linebacker, but I get it. I understand. With all due respect to the Heine man.